bought the place in the 50s, and by mid-60s we had cattle all over this place. We had planted fescue pastures back here, and we had put a fence around the entire cove, and we would swim the cattle across the river or get them over here the best we could. And then we began to want to do more as far as wildlife is concerned. We had stocked turkeys in here in '64, as well as deer. There were no deer north of Birmingham in those days, period. And so they chose this as a place that they wanted to have released. And they trapped the deer and turkey off the Fred Stimson Sanctuary down in South Alabama, shipped them up here, and turned them loose. The deer did wonderfully well from day one, but the turkeys walked north, went to Tennessee. We don't know why, up in Lincoln County, Tennessee. They put radios on some of them and actually radioed them all the way up there. But they didn't like it, and the reason they didn't like it was we didn't have any suitable nesting habitat.
It was all very, very neatly trimmed, and you could basically stand where we are standing now and you could see miles in either direction. It was just a vast, vast open land. You see the mountains in the background, and they were very vast amongst themselves, but you could just see for a long way.
Raymond, who has done most of this, began to put together a plan from the advice of wildlife specialists of what we might do, some of which was planting trees, pine trees, and other corridors and things that we've seen
Even
today.
though you didn't like the idea of planting
That's
pine
right.
trees.
I didn't think much of pine trees until you talked me into it. But even that was not enough. I began to see more turkey almost immediately. But what we really needed was some warm season grass.
We had to rethink what to us was pretty. Beauty is always in the eye of the beholder. But we had to see that what might be ugly to us as humans is paradise to the wildlife. A grown-up field with a bunch of weird-looking plants in it is actually beautiful. We had a tremendous amount of deer back then. Probably had way too many. The habitat simply could not support it. We believe in being good stewards of the wildlife that the good Lord's blessed us with. But we were able to, we had a lot of deer. We had very few turkeys. We had very, very few quail. We had very few other forms of wildlife. But we did have a lot of deer. But we wanted to, even with our deer, we wanted to manage them better and provide more for them. So we vastly reduced our overall herd through selective harvest. As you've seen today, evidence today, it would have been a red letter day to have come up here and see turkeys, and we've seen them in 3 or 4 spots just driving around today, and seen quite a few of them. You would not have seen that 10 years ago. And so that's the reason we went down this road, and changing that is our deer herd's better, our deer herd's healthier, our deer herd, the land can support it much better because we not only reduced the population, we increased the habitat components that help support them. But the main focus that we did this for really was for our turkey population.
So these are your warm season grasses out here, Raymond?
Yeah, this is a very young stand. We actually just planted this this past June, and we've gotten an excellent stand so far. And this is one of the areas, and we've done this very similar to the patchwork pattern we've done with our timber cutting. Is we've placed a couple acres here and a couple acres there, and we've planted overall about 40 acres of this native warm season grass to help with the fawning, bedding, nesting, bugging type of cover that the wildlife so desperately need, and the component we were really missing here on our place. This property is about 5,000 acres in size, and we have about 3,000 of those acres or so are in native hardwood plant size stands. We have about 2,000 acres of open. In that 2,000 acres we do have some tree planting that has occurred over probably about 10% of that ground. And then the rest of it, which is about 1,500 acres or so of it, is put into row crops on an annual basis. We try to plant we're close to 30 acres of food plots that we plant annually on this place. We get a clover field such as this. As you can see right now, we're bush hogging it, and we won't replant this field because it is so lush. But we generally plant a mixture of oats, wheat, rye, not ryegrass, but rye, and clover. Well, Lynn, this is one of those areas that we were trying to create even more diversity for the wildlife. As I explained earlier, we really had just one big monoculture, and this was an area that we decided to go in and clear cut and manage as a clear cut, so that we could continue to have a different element, a different component for the wildlife to have. You know, we were missing nesting, we were missing bedding, fawning, bugging type of cover, and this gave us another different element, a different component to that.
So this was just an open hardwood stand, just like the timber we're looking at behind us, and y'all came in and just clear cut it.
That's correct, and we did that in patches, and we did it in several places. This is just one example of that. We did it in patches throughout the farm and trying to create different areas that were like that. But yes, it was an open hardwood stand, very similar to the trees that you see behind you. And it was, quite frankly, to wildlife, it was like a desert. There was nothing there for them but open canopy, you know, deep canopy hardwood forest, and we went in there and clear cut it, and we're continuing to manage that as a clear cut.
Raymond, this is one of the prettiest hardwood plantations I have seen. What year did y'all plant these cherry bark oak seedlings?
We planted these in 1996, and we spent a lot of time. This is under the CRP riparian buffer zone, and we spent a lot of time, extra time, making sure we got a good stand, and I think we did. We accomplished that, and as you can tell, for 13-year-old trees, they've done rather well.
Yeah, these trees look great. They've got to average about 12 inches, and how tall do you think they are?
Close to 30 feet in height, I would think.
For a cherry bark oak bare root seedling, this has really grown into a good stand of future timber.
That's right, that's right. You know, we have a lot of emphasis on our wildlife and our wildlife production on this particular farm, but we haven't totally taken our mind off the what's really the economic driver behind that, and that is our timber value as our secondary objective. Mike Miller has been is my helper on the farm. He's been the guy. He's here every day. I wish I could be here every day with him, but unfortunately I can't. I have other businesses that take me away from that. But without Mike's help, and Mike's more like a friend than he is an employee, but he just does an excellent job. He lives here on the place. He's here every day. We talk every day, if not at least once, if not multiple times a day. And discussing and helping plan out and implement these different practices that we've seen today. And without somebody like Mike, it would be very, very difficult, particularly in a place of this size. I first heard about the Treasure Forest program from Lynn Washington. Lynn Washington's been very instrumental in most of the practices you've seen here today and most of the practices on this farm. I was looking for some help. I knew very little about taking a couple of forestry courses at Auburn as electives. But knew very little about timber management, and Lynn was our resident forester at the time, and Lynn came and met with me. He's helped me sit down and come up with a plan, and we began to enact that plan, and it's been a partnership that we've had for a very long time, about 13 years now, and he's seen a lot of these practices go in. You know, the question is, do the next generation, do they have the same passion for the property that the prior generations and I currently have? And I think the answer is yes. There's been numerous times that there's 15 of us, and all 15 of us will come up here and spend time together. So, you know, we are still raising that next generation, but it's looking good so far.
We wouldn't change our path from the old days to now. We think we're on the right track.
Well, it's changed a lot since I've seen it, but I think it's changed for the best for the wildlife on the farm.
I hope so.